It's that time of the week again where we go to bunnymuffins.lol and check out the tier list for patch 14.6. So there's some small changes here and there from the last video, and I just want to catch everyone up to that. So if you are new to the game, or if you've been playing, just got into this patch, whatever, playing a while, hopefully this video helps you out to figure out which comps are going to be a bit stronger and also how to play them and when to play them, because just knowing what is good is not enough. You have to know when to play them as well. So we're going to cover all that in this video. Shouldn't be too long because I just want to cover really just the top comps right now, and that's going to be Exotech. If there's one comp you just want to play over and over and over and over, it's going to be the Exotech comp, hands down, because it's so easy to hit, it's easy to play. You just need a couple of items, and then you could just play any legendary to just cap off the comp. You could play it with an emblem, you could play it without an emblem. There's just a lot of different things you could do with it. So that's why I have Exotech alone in the S tier right now, just because it's like by far the best comp for like most people to play. Unless you're pushing like top 200, top 100 or whatever, it's like you could get away with like pretty much just playing Exotech, maybe like 18 of your 20 games. But after that, there still are some options right now. I'm not saying it's like OP, but it's just good and it's also easy to play, and you pretty much always hit it. It's consistent. But in the A tier, we have Strategist AMP. Definitely a very strong comp. This comp wins a lot of games because it actually uses a lot of legendaries as a part of its core. And if you get the right items for it, that's where I think it really shines. After that, we have his Vanguard Marksman Aphelios. There's a new way to play this right now. People play it with 6 Vanguard and 2 Marksman instead of 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman, so we'll go into those details there. Misfortune Flex, this is kind of the same as before. You have Misfortune as a carry, and then you play Dynamos, and then you could also tech in an at least 3-star. That's really popular to do right now. Kogmaw Reroll. 6 Vanguard with Kogmaw is going to be what you're going to be going for here. Simple reroll comp that is pretty powerful. Graves Reroll. I dropped Graves Reroll down a little bit. It's still strong, but you need to just get so many things going for you in order to play it that it kind of makes it not very consistent. It's kind of like a jackpot comp, you know? After that, we have is Anima Squad. Solid comp if you have the emblem for it or some trait augments. BoomBot, decent if you get the augment. Actually, more than decent. It's very good if you get the augment. It's just hard to get to 6 BoomBot. You need to make sure you both have the emblem and also get to 6 BoomBot with Urgot. So you need a lot of gold to do that. But I have found that you can win streak with this pretty decently, and there are other like random BoomBot boards you could kind of play. Shaco Reroll, very good comp if you get it from the beginning. Cypher, good cash out. You can play anything afterwards with that if you want. And then we have Vex. Seen better days, but if you build a blue buff because you're going for like Annie, for example, going for a Vex as a backup is going to be viable. And then same with Veigar. Veigar's another user of that, but this one's more focused on the Techie Reroll. If you have a Veigar with any of the Cyber Boss augments, it's going to be viable to go for. There's the regular Techie Reroll with Bruisers, that's with Seraphine, and that's also a pretty good comp if you get a lot of ability power and if you get a lot of the units. Last up, we have is AMP, Naafiri, and Yuumi Reroll. Yuumi's just like a very good character right now. She's a triple trader, and like they kind of buffed her too much before. I don't know if it was like a buff. They made it so that every part of her comp kind of like synergizes together really well. So she's pretty decent right now. After that, we have like all the other comps down here. I'm not saying you can never play them or something like that, or that they can't ever win, but it's going to take a little more than every other comp we kind of went through so far. So I recommend sticking with the S and A tiers. Sometimes I say dip into the B tiers, but this is not going to be one of those weeks. But let's get into how to play most of these. Also, if you want to comp to one trick, pick one of these. I list out comps to one trick every single time I do a video, and I also list out a bunch of beginner comps if you're like trying to get more of a hang of the game. But let's start up at the top. So we have the standard build of Exotech here, and we have all the Exotech units. You can copy the team code here on teamfight.lol, and all you have to do is go for a fast 8, play Sejuani and Zeri, get a Rage Blade on her, and be good to go. A lot of people ask me like, oh, do you prefer Pulse Stabilizer or Flux Capacitor on Zeri? And honestly, like, it doesn't really matter. You just need one of those items. So always be sure to check your Exotech items before you go into it, because if you don't get one of those, it's not really worth to play. But there are other viable Exotech comps to go for if you don't get those 2 specific items. After that, you want to focus on your tank with Sejuani. I just like putting a Protector's Vow on her, and then any tank item for her 3rd item plus the Exotech tank item. And then Mordekaiser can hold like your utility with Even Shroud or Sunfire Cape. And then you could also put a Morello on your Aurora if you end up playing her, but you don't have to, you know, like we don't always hit her. And that's what I mean. You don't have to play the same exact legendaries every single time with this comp. If you just type in like 5 costs over here, like you could play Zac, you could play Garen. Garen's really good if you get the Exotech from the God of the Net thing, because then anyone with 3 items gets the buff. Nunu also fits in here, Urgot, Zac, things like that. Like, there's a lot of things you could play. The best ones are probably going to be Garen, Aurora, and Zac, but there are a lot of other things you can kind of just slot in if you hit them to 2-star randomly. And if you get items on them, you have an Exotech emblem maybe, like just put them on whichever legendary you get, and you're going to be frying a lot of people. But that's pretty much like the gist of Exotech. Not going to go too deep into it, because honestly, there isn't too much to say. Like, just check your Exotech item. That's step number 1. Like, I listed out in the requirements here. And then if you have +1 Exotech from, like, emblem, it's useful, but it's not mandatory, you know? And if you're ever wondering which unit is the best to use the emblem, well, first off, I put it down here. It's pretty much anyone with 3 items, but you could also check out the stats section in the Explorer tool, put in, like, 7 Exotech, and then you put in Exotech emblem, and then you can check out which units fit the item the best, or like use the item the best. And like Nunu and Kabuko uses it a lot, Zac uses it a lot, Aurora, Garen, all of them, like you look at the average placement, 3.5, 3.48, 3.75, 3.84, like all good stuff. Like you pretty much just put it on any legendary that you're running, and that's who you're going to be playing, you know? But honestly, like you see how close these numbers are in terms of total games. That means people are flexing the comp. Like you're not hard forcing the same legendary every single time because you don't have an Exotech legendary. So that's one really good thing going for this comp. Very consistent. You'll get like second and thirds a lot, and occasionally you'll win. Next build up we have is Strategist Flex. If you want to win, this is going to be a comp for you. And the only problem is you need Samira when you play this comp. Like you can only get to 5 AMP with Samira. So that means you need a lot of gold when you play this comp, or you need like a huge win streak when you play this comp. And that's kind of tricky. It doesn't happen all the time, you know? And sometimes you also play with a Yuumi 3-star. So that's very expensive. It's very difficult to go for 3-star, 3 cost, and a legendary at the same time. So normally people only play this if they have like a perfect spot for this comp, because that way they'll get enough gold to roll for Yuumi 3 and also go to level 9 and get Samira. Or maybe they're low health, they get a Samira off Carousel, or they have some augment that allows them to always get Samira. For example, I've never tried this. I don't know if you actually can get AMP from this, but there's one prismatic augment, I forget what it's called. It gives you a guaranteed unit of that cost level every time the stage goes up and up and up. So you eventually always get the legendary unit for your team. I actually don't know if it's active for AMPs though. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is, if there's a way to get Samira, it's normally going to be with a ton of gold, and you get that through win streaking or a huge econ augment without dying too much in the early game. And then you'll be able to get Yuumi 3-star and Samira. And then once you hit that, you get the 5 AMP bonus, and your champion's abilities just go completely off the charts, and that's all you really need to worry about. By the way, one important note when playing this comp, like for items, like there are a lot of different item holders you can use. Like obviously Nico's the main tank, but Annie and Yuumi are going to be the primary carries. And then you kind of see afterwards which items you have more of. If you have more AP items, obviously drop them on Annie. If you have more AD items, drop them on Samira. But if you split items between like Annie and Samira, let's say you have 2 possible things you can build before you pop your component anvil at the very end of stage 4. You do not want to split the items. You don't want to build like 1 AP item, 1 AD items, and have 1 item on Annie, 1 item on Samira. You want to generally combine 2 items onto 1 unit if possible. So keep that in mind as you are playing this. Like you always want to concentrate your items. Spreading the items out unless you have like a cybernetic augment just isn't really worth it. So I want to make a special note of that in this comp when playing this, because there's so many different item holders and you just kind of want to concentrate all of them into a few units. So even though there's a lot of people that can use stuff, like they're gonna have to wait, you know, it's kind of like waiting in a line. But pretty much you want to do like a fast 8, fast 9 with this build, just to kind of get the legendaries and play this from an ability power start. So if you have a lot of ability power items like blue buff is really important. If you build like the jeweled gauntlet stuff, like then you definitely want to lean more into Yuumi instead of Annie, because Annie just really likes casting a bunch. If you build like a void staff early, that's pretty decent. And obviously like the tank items are gonna be good on any comp. But next build up we have is going to be the Aphelios Marksman Vanguard. There's a new version, the 6 Vanguard version. Before, like I was saying, play the 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman comp. But now it's like the 6 Vanguard is playing a little bit better. If we take a look at the stats, for example, we can go ahead and put in, let's say 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman. And you'll see here that like it's averaging like a 4.43, and solid, right? It's still playable. But if you change to 6 and 2, the comp becomes like a lot better. It goes to like 3.87, which is pretty good. It's a lot better, obviously. But the key part about this is normally when people play this, they get the Vanguard emblem, and that makes the comp a lot stronger. But you don't always have to play a Vanguard emblem. We could type it in here right now, for example, and you could still get to 6 Vanguard without it. So that's kind of pretty nice, right? And the great users of it is going to be like Garen and Zac, things like that. If you haven't noticed a pattern yet, legendary units make use of emblems a lot better than other people. But Vanguard emblem, an important thing to note, it's one of those emblems that you can only get from one of those augments that give like a random emblem. But the core of the build's the same. You just run Leona, Xayah, and Aphelios, and then just fill in all the other units. You don't really care too much about them. You don't have to itemize them. So you could still play this comp if you hit some of the other marksmen in the early game, and then you don't have the other Vanguards yet. But this 6 Vanguard board is like really, really cheap because you could also run Vi. So you could start the game with like 2-star Sylas, 2-star Vi, and play her for like a very long time, eventually swapping them into like the Brahms, Jarvans, and Leonas. But this comp is just very accessible, and then you just level up and have access to a lot of different legendary units because you didn't have to spend as much money rolling down in the early game to stabilize because all the Vanguards are so cheap. The only troublesome part is going to be your level 8 roll down because you need 3 different 4-cost units. That is pretty difficult to get. But as per usual, if you listen to the leveling guide that I posted at the beginning of the set, normally when you do like a level 8 comp, you're normally playing it either with an econ augment, such as like Slammin', or you're playing it because you win streaked in the early game. Next build up we have is going to be Misfortune Flex. Solid comp. Again, you can do it with Elise, you could do it without Elise. There's a way to play Misfortune with Zeri as well. So if you're playing a Zeri comp, let's say you're going for the Exotech build, and you're like, hey, I just randomly hit some Misfortunes. Like you could just play her too, you know, just go down to 5 Exotech, it does pretty decently. But the main version of Misfortune is going to be the Dynamo version with Elise 3-star. You could go for Braum 3 as well when you're rolling down, but not necessary. You just need either Leona or Braum to be your tank, and then play around with the other Dynamos. In the late game, obviously slap in Garen and Zac. They provide pretty much everything you need, and yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for that comp. Next comp up we have is Vanguard Kogmaw. This is just a simple reroll comp. You do level 1, and you can go for 3-star Kogmaw, 3-star Vi, 3-star Sylas, 3-star Kindred. Itemize them if they do get to 3-star, and then throw items on them. For Kogmaw, it's really just Kraken Slayer and Rageblade. Third item, people prefer like a second Kraken Slayer, or Kraken's Fury, I forget which one it's called. But honestly, it could be almost anything. It could be like a Giant Slayer, for example. Just anything that gives like attack speed or attack damage is going to be more than welcome. Make sure, again, you have armor penetration with the Even Shroud and anti-heal with the Sunfire Cape. And then if you get extra items, put them on your 3-star Sylas or Kindred if you have them. If not, put them on some of the more expensive units later on in the game, such as like Leona. Then, of course, you may have guessed already, this is a level 8 comp. Is there a level 9 version? Yes, it is. Just drop in a Zac or a Garen. Garen, I think, would be preferred here because if you get Vanguard from God of the Net, you just put it on the Garen and it becomes like pretty tanky. But it is definitely something worth trying out. But very easy comp. If you're a beginner and you want to focus on like 1-cost reroll and just like learning how to play 1-cost reroll, this is going to be the best comp to do it with on this patch. Next build up we have is Golden Ox Reroll. This is going to be a 2-cost reroll comp. I don't really like this comp that much because there's so many requirements for it, as I discussed before. Like you want an early Graves, and you need to get him to 2-star pretty quickly so you could start killing things and taking advantage of the Golden Ox kill bonus. Because in case you didn't know, when Golden Ox kill a unit, there's a chance that they drop gold, and getting gold is really good for Golden Ox because when you level up, because when you spend gold up to a certain amount every turn, you get a bigger bonus for your Golden Ox trait. It gives you more damage amplification, and it just scales really, really well into the late game. One person made a comment on one of my previous videos about reroll comps that I made at the start of the set, and normally I say like reroll comps fall off in the late game compared to like level 9 comps with legendaries and things like that. But one person did make a special mention, is like, hey, one cool thing about the Golden Ox comp of this set is that with Graves, it could actually keep up because you still scale with the Golden Ox buff every single turn. It's just an interesting way to kind of think about it because TFT always is trying new things whenever they make a new set, and maybe that was what they were going for. I'm not actually sure. No, I didn't ask Mortdog or anything like that, but it is kind of cool that some reroll comps are able to get some form of scaling into the late game rather than just like dominating like stage 5 and the early parts of stage 6 and then falling off unless they hit some like crazy combo later on. But yeah, Graves main carry, BT, Sterex, Quicksilver, gonna be solid on him. If you ever get any of the artifact items, gonna be great on him too, or the Radiant items of these versions too. And then in the backline, just standard Aphelios build, Rageblade, Kraken's Fury, and then any third item. And then in the front line, Jarvan, he could be 3-star, he could be 2-star. I prefer getting him 3-star because re-rolling with Golden Ox makes the gold spend a lot easier to manage because re-rolls count double towards the gold bonus for Golden Ox. So if you're ever remotely near Jarvan 3-star or if no one's playing it, definitely go for it because it's gonna be good. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just 3 stars better than 2-star if you can handle it. Next build up we have is Anima Squad. Anima Squad's honestly a pretty solid comp, but you only play this situationally. So if you're in lower rating, let's say like maybe you're a gold player or like a plat player, you can get away with playing a lot of Anima Squad. But as you get higher and higher, I wouldn't recommend just like hard forcing this every single game, just because you like the units or something like that, or you like love playing Xayah, for example, or you love the way Leona looks. Like, it doesn't really support that in this current patch because it's not like the Exotech comp. The Exotech comp doesn't require a legendary, but the Anima Squad comp, it gets really, really, really powerful if you can get an Aurora, because she just lives a very long time. She brings a unit onto the board, and she is one of the Anima Squad units. So you pretty much need Aurora in order to survive into the late game. And if you're hard forcing this comp every game, you're not going to hit it every single time. And also, without an emblem or some sign to go towards this comp, it's really difficult to play the early game, because even getting to 5 Anima Squad, sometimes it's hard to fit because you have to take out one of your crucial item holders that's holding everything right now, or maybe like get some random synergy that really buffs up your board. For example, a lot of people play around Sylas in the early game as their tank, and if you're level 5 and you have 5 Anima Squad, yeah, you could play it, but you have to lose one of your Vanguards, right? So that means Sylas gets pretty weak, and sometimes he just dies before he could actually do anything or take advantage of any of the Anima Squad stuff out there. So navigating that can be a little bit tricky. So that's why I only recommend playing Anima Squad if you get a very strong sign for it. So what does that mean? It means like you start the game, you have like 2-star Sylas, a 1-star Vayne, and a 2-star Seraphine. Like, that's a very strong start, right? You get 3 Anima right away, and then you could use whoever as an item holder, and then you could ideally win streak early game, and then you get to level 8, play around Leona and Xayah pretty easily. Another sign to go for it is if you go for an Anima Squad emblem augment or something like that. That's going to be another good sign to go for this, because obviously if you get that, you can only play this comp. But it does make it a lot easier to play because it's just so much easier to fit every unit in there. You get like an extra unit slot, which is pretty nice. Next build up we have is BoomBots. BoomBots is pretty hit or miss, but if you do get to 6 BoomBot, it's very strong. Just make sure you have an Ionic Spark in your build, because BoomBots do a ton of magic damage. So even though you're building attack damage on Urgot, like, you still deal like mainly magic damage just because of the BoomBot trait. So make sure you absolutely have this Ionic Spark. You could also build like a Void Staff on Vex or something like that, but I prefer the Ionic Spark. Cho'Gath needs items anyways, and you pretty much are in like BoomBot jail until you hit Urgot. So you need a lot of gold when you play this, and you absolutely need the legendary. There are some reroll versions of BoomBots. Like, some people have been playing it with like Twist of Fate a long time ago, but I think Twist of Fate's like not in a good spot right now, so I wouldn't really attempt that build in this current patch, but maybe in the future it changes, so we'll definitely see on that. But pretty hit or miss comp there. Next comp up we have a Shaco Reroll. Like, only play Shaco if you get him 2-star at the start of the game with an Infinity Edge, because again, you need to kill things. Like, a beginner mistake I see all the time is people play him and they build like a Hand of Justice early or a Bloodthirster early on him, and they're like, yeah, I'm in a good Shaco spot because I got like a 2-star Shaco, I have like 2 more on my bench, and if Mortdog's giving me a sign to go Shaco, this is it. And the answer to that is like, maybe not, because you definitely need the Infinity Edge to kill units in order to stack him, because a Hand of Justice is not going to help him kill things that much, you know? You definitely need the Infinity Edge, or like maybe even an artifact item. So playing this comp is going to be pretty rare, but if you do get the stars to align, such as getting a Shaco 2-star with some other Slayers in the beginning of the game, or maybe some Syndicates in the beginning of the game with an Infinity Edge, then that's when you're going to be cooking really hard. But let's move on into the next comp, which is going to be Cypher. Cypher, yeah, just cash out, play some of the other comps. If you do get the Cypher cash out with Galio and Draven, you could play something like this. But pretty much, most people are just using the Cypher cash out to play the level 9 comps, because that's what you use the extra gold for, right? Playing more expensive units such as the Strategist AMP board. Next build up we have is going to be Exotech Vex. Definitely a step down now from before, but If you ever get like Hollow Bow or Hyperfangs, it's pretty good on Varus. You could play him as a 3-star. It's actually pretty solid. And just use him as a utility unit. Put the red buff and Void Staff on him. Honestly, he ends up doing a ton of damage anyways with those utility items, and then put all the damage items onto Vex. It's just blue buff plus 2 damage items. Blue buff, probably Guard Breaker is the best item, and then anything for the 3rd item. For frontline, Sejuani uses the usual build of Protector's Vow, whatever the Exotech item is, and like literally any other tank item. If I had to hand pick it, maybe double Protector's Vow would be ideal, just because you want her to cast as soon as possible. And yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do. They did nerf this comp a little bit because they nerfed some of the augments, but it's still very playable. You just can't hard force it, or it's not hard forceable, or not hard force worthy. Let's put it that way. Veigar Reroll, I pretty much only play this if I get Cyber Boss augments, or if I just get Veigar for free. Like, let's say I'm playing the game and they give me like 6 Veigars in a row. Like, sure, I'll play it, right? But with a blue buff, of course. But unless they're doing that, I don't play this unless I have the Cyber Boss augment. New high score, I think is what it's called. And the reason why is because it's like hard to get Kabuko because you're doing a 2-cost reroll and then you still need to find a legendary unit to really power spike. That doesn't happen in most cases. So be very careful when playing Veigar Reroll. I think people are overplaying it, to be honest, in lower ratings, because they see the comp and they're like, oh, I got a lot of Veigars and I have the items for it. But they fail to realize that unless you can get to Kabuko, the comp just falls off like a rock. So the way to do that is by having the Cyber Boss augments or having a ton of gold that it doesn't matter. Next build up we have is going to be Techie Reroll. Very fun comp. This is probably like one of my, I wouldn't say favorite comp, but I'd say it's like the most interesting comp of the patch, because Techies have been getting buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed in recent patches. And if you just look at the stats for Techies, it's really, really good. Like, it's crazy. Like, I didn't realize it was that big, but look at this. Like, at 6 Techie, 3.87, at 8, 3.85, like, at 6, that's more than good enough, right? Like, that's crazy. I didn't know it was like that good until I checked the data. Obviously, I knew people were playing this comp, but at level 9, you get to 6 Techies. Like, there's some bias in the data, right? Like, you do a 1-cost reroll and you reach level 9. That's how you get to 6 Techies. So the data is biased, as with like every data point you could ever look at in your whole life, not even in TFT, literally in everything. But it is still kind of crazy that 6 Techie is doing that well. But pretty much you just do a 1-cost reroll build, and you play around Seraphine, Zyra, and Mundo, and you play Bruisers and Techies. That's pretty much all you have to do. Nothing too complicated. Later on in the game, you could itemize Mordekaiser. Some people I've seen even do like a 3-star Mordekaiser. They pretty much do the 1-cost reroll, and then they level up, go to level 8, and if they see a lot of Mordekaisers, they roll down for it. If not, they skip and go to level 9. And then you could also obviously use Brand as a secondary carry. Brand's really good with Morello and Namicon though, because he just hits so many units, so that's kind of what I like using him for right now. But if you get him to 2-star, he's going to be pumping out a lot of damage if you get enough items. Like when I make these guides, like I can't know exactly how many items you're going to get. If you're going to get a lot, then like, yeah, Brand wants to carry items. He wants like Shojin, Jeweled Gauntlet, and Stride Breaker. But there are going to be games where you don't get that many items, so you can't do that all the time, you know? But pretty solid build here. I think definitely underplayed a little bit. Reroll Naafiri and Yuumi. This comp's a little weird because like you need Pulse Stabilizer on Naafiri. I think there's one other Exotech item that works. I think it's Hyperfangs is the name of it. I forget all the names of the Exotech items because they're not as common as like the regular items like Blue Buff, for example. But yeah, if you don't have either of those 2 items, like it's not worth playing Naafiri. I personally just really like Pulse Stabilizer. I don't like Hyperfangs as much on this patch, but in a future patch it could change. And then you're running it with Yuumi anyways, so I think I'd rather just play like the regular Strategist AMP comp whenever I play this, rather than going for Naafiri reroll. But if you're going for it, the Strategist comp, and then you just see a bunch of Naafiris, definitely consider it if you do have the attack damage items to back it up with. Another fun fact about this build is that you only get to 3 Exotechs, so you have to make sure that it's the first item. Going to the 5th item, going to the 2nd item, it's just not possible in a lot of cases. But next build up we have is going to be the B tiers. Street Demons, this is the only B tier comp I'm really going to talk about because someone told me something's bugged with Street Demon. I don't really know exactly what's going on, but whenever I see people play it, it's just very underwhelming, right? Like, it's definitely playable. If you get Brand and he's popping off, you get him 2-star early, like, yeah, you're gonna do well, right? Like, there's no getting around that. But if I compare this comp to the other 4-cost comps, like, let's look at the summary at the top. Like, Exotech, I don't even need to talk about that, right? Exotech performs so much better. But if we look at the A tier comps and we look at, let's say, Anima Squad, I think it's good to compare Anima Squad with Street Demon because their breakpoints are kind of the same. It's like, I'd rather be the Anima Squad guy, you know? If we look at a different one, such as like Aphelios or Strategist AMP, like, yeah, like I'd rather be those guys too, you know? So unless you get like a perfect game for Street Demon, or you get like the augment early with Mundo 2-star, Zyra 2-star, things like that, then yeah, like Street Demons are gonna be good. But unless that's happening, like I wouldn't really play the comp or even touch it a bit at all. So how I would approach the patch right now is check your Exotech item. If it's any of the good ones for Zeri, even if it's the 7th item, just go for it. Play it, build a Rage Blade, be very happy. If you get AP, go Strategist AMP. If you get AD, go for either the Vanguard build or the Misfortune build. And yeah, that's going to be like your bread and butter. Like these top 4 comps are like 90% of your games, let's say. And then if you get some of those weird games for some of the other stuff, like the Shaco Reroll, you know, things like that, then yeah, go for it. But pretty simple patch, I would say, in terms of like what to play. Just roll a dice or play based on what Mortdog gives you that game, and look at these top 4 comps, see which one makes the most sense. Scout around, see what other people are playing, or see what your items like lean towards the most. Like if you want Exotech, it's going to be the Rage Blade. Strategist AMP, it's going to be the blue buff. Vanguard Marksman, it's going to be like Rage Blade or like an Infinity Edge, depending on who you get first. And then Misfortune, it's going to be like the Infinity Edge, and Yuumi also wants a blue buff there. So a lot of shared items, obviously, but that's kind of how I would approach it. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Everything you saw in this video can be found on bunnymuffins.lol/meta, as it can always be found every single Friday, or just whenever. You could go there on Thursday too, you know, like who knows. But also for all the data checking, teamfight.lol's got to be my pick. It's solid, very usable. I like how you can search by the numbers to see like all the different trait breakpoints, for example. A lot of little things that are on the site that I really like. But that's going to be it for me today. I hope to see you all next time.